Just like it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a whole corporation and all its employees to get a sustainable impact.
Welcome to the CSO Impact Podcast, where we talk to leaders in sustainability and see how work can have a positive impact on the way on the planet or on people. I'm your host, Harald Neidhardt, and in this episode, I'm really happy to talk to Lena Hök, and she is the Executive Vice President, Sustainability and Innovation at the Skanska Group. And she also was nominated as one of our top 20 nominees for Europe for the awards in Davos. And the company has recently also been recognized by Financial Times for the fourth time in a row as a climate leader in Europe. So there's a lot to talk about. There are a lot of things you're doing good. We want to know, what are you doing? How are you doing this good? And I'm really excited to talk to you. How are you today, Lena?
Oh, thank you for inviting me here. And I'm looking forward to the conversation. And I have listened into your podcast before, and I think it's really neat. It's a kind of a new profession being a CSO. So it's neat to hear the different stories.
Well, our whole mission is to shine a light on you and your peers. And so it's really all about what you're doing, your mission, your visions, and how you drive this forward. Before we learn more about you, why don't we start ahead with, can you tell us a little bit more about Skanska Group? What is the business and maybe even some of the initiatives that you're driving? But let's start with a company that we have a feeling for this is. And maybe the picture in the back is a clue already.
Yes, it is. So Skanska is one of the world leading project development and construction companies. And we are situated, and our market is in the US and in Europe. And we have about 27,000 employees, 177 billion SEK when it comes to our revenue. And we also have a science-based climate target. And what we do then, how we spend our days, we are constructing, so bridges, roads, railways, tunneling works, heavy infrastructure, but also kind of that social infrastructure that also comes with hospitals, healthcare facilities, or universities and schools or buildings. And then we also have in our project development, that's where we ourselves are putting our money into buying land, setting the design from scratch and building it and making it up and running, an office or a real estate or a residential, and then also divesting it to some other long-term investors. And I'm happy to say that in every project, in our own project development, we make sure to upkeep the highest sustainability standards and certifications. And maybe then also to mention, and as you see on the picture behind me. So just to know the Skanska world, traveling with Skanska, you can go over this bridge that is connecting Sweden with Denmark, the Öresundsbridge, now turning 25 years old. That's one of our projects. Or you can take a look at the skyline in London and seeing the Gherkin. That's also one of our projects. Or for that part, if you are in New York, we have our office in Empire State Building, and we were really proud to do the refurbishment of the very top floors of Empire State Building and the exhibition up there. And being there, you can look over the Penn Station that we actually renovated while it was upkeeping, of course, for all the commuters still needed to travel in and out of New York, and for us to make sure that we can construct it safe for both the commuters and, of course, for the workers. So that's traveling through Skanska markets. It's also to be a reminder that whatever we are putting up there, it actually lasts through a lifetime and even beyond.
Super impressive. I also I've been into the Penn Station last year when we were doing the CSO Awards in New York in September. And it was so impressive because before it was small and dreadful, and now it's really light, and there's the shopping plaza and access to the train. So that's a very well executed project, I think. And this bridge obviously also has a lot of storytelling from Hollywood and Netflix and your local TV stars. So it's interesting to see that construction obviously is helping us in going from A to B in our mobility or how we live. As you say, you also work in housing. Now, we know construction also has a lot of, let's say, cement in parts of it, which is one of the largest materials and CO2 emitters. So you have been selected and recognized as a climate leader. Tell us a little bit maybe about some of the initiatives, or maybe start with the big challenges that your industry has in general.
So you're right on to it. The built environment stands for about 40% of the carbon emissions in the world. And it comes from foremost the materials, so that being concrete, steel, asphalt, glass, etc., but also from the energy needed to actually operate the building during its lifetime. So to us, Skanska, we have set our climate target. We are focusing on how can we design for efficiency already in the early stages, making sure that we are using good digital tools and solutions to see if we can optimize design, but also how we can actually track the emissions when we are choosing different kinds of materials, being able to do life cycle assessment and carbon calculations in the early stage. And of course, then it's also about, can we change? Can we shift materials? Can we shift energy? Or can we even construct a building that is producing energy, storage energy, and by that actually has the ability to produce more energy than what it needs itself. And today, the technology there, we have done several of these buildings, even in the very upper north, showcasing that it is possible today, the technology, but it's needed to be scaled.
Let's talk about maybe some of the initiatives that you're driving. I find it particularly interesting and encouraging that you also have the role of innovation. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the innovation that you're driving and how does it work together, where you look at sustainability and innovation. So this can be contradictory, but maybe this is the clue.
Well, to us, when we were starting to look into our innovation portfolio, we did see that we did have quite a few of the innovations were actually also due to us searching for new solutions on materials, but also on other aspects, how we can better use emerging tech and different kind of digital tools, automation, actually to drive efficiencies in the use of materials, as well as smart tech or prop tech solutions. So just to state some of the stuff that we have been doing, I mentioned the powerhouse, how to be able to actually have a really energy efficient building, but also how you're able actually to calculate on the carbons coming from the built environment, so the embodied carbon coming from the materials. We have developed some years ago a tool that it is called EC3. So that is actually a calculator of carbon for the construction environment. That's why it's called EC3. And you can Google it and you can actually use it for free. Because what we did was that we developed this tool, we developed the database with about 10,000 environmental product declarations for the construction environment. And then we made it open source, both the tool as well as the database. Today, I think it's about 130 EPDs being part of this database, and architects or material providers or our peers in the industry and our customers, everyone can use it. And the thing here is, because we want to drive innovation when it comes to how to optimize and use and design for more optimized use when it comes to resources such as materials. In order to do that, we needed the data. And that's why we thought if we make this an open source tool, we're going to make it actually grow. And I dare to say, I think it is a leading tool today in the US market. And that helps us tremendously. So that's just one of the examples of actually how tech solutions also can help us understanding what is the footprint and how can we optimize design. Also when it comes to from an emission or carbon perspective, as well as to spur people to think about that, to trigger that aspect, how to optimize design, how to optimize the use of different kinds of resources, or for that part, how to use the circular solutions and circular materials and see how it actually shifts. And having mentioned that also, I think this is key because if you want to be able to innovate or develop different kinds of sustainable solutions, you also need to have something to show for your customers. What is the difference when they are choosing different solutions? And by having data and tools like this, that really helps out in this dialogue with the customers.
If you have, let's say, the tools available, the architects, are they looking at also new materials or the use of materials, reducing materials? If I see maybe skyscrapers, maybe not all of them should have all the glass anymore. And we go back and timber, mass timber and cross-laminated timber are new materials, I guess, that could help also in the CO2 reductions. And the other way, I'm seeing that maybe there's startups who are doing new ways of cement and materials for the building part, maybe with biochar or so, but not all of the big cement companies are pushing ahead, I think. So how is this innovation field, if you will, between legacy providers, which you need because you need to have the material around the world, and then you have startups who have a promising project, but maybe not the scale that you need? What is sort of the dilemma, or where maybe some best practices that you see already that you say, okay, here's something that started, but we're using this, and you help them scale, or you can scale that architects also maybe do less glass and shiny in the results, because there's so many steps in between. And it takes years, obviously, in the construction planning and all these things. I would love to hear a little bit more of the details. So how do you go into the, let's say, scaling part with some new of these innovations?
So that's an important aspect, and also why in our climate plan, we start off with saying design for efficiency. And that's very purposeful because it is already in the design phase and in the planning. When you start to actually set the design, choose the materials, that's when you can make those decisions that are most impactful. And that also means for us, we need to be relevant already in the very, very early phases and be around the table together with the architects and our customers. So among the stuff that we are doing is actually pushing for us as a construction and project development company to be much better at really understand the customer needs, and also how we can contribute with our knowledge and expertise. Because if we are part of those early dialogues, we may actually state that, okay, if you do the design a bit differently, we can take away a lot of need for concrete due to the fact that we are making a slimmer construction. Or if a lot of materials being used in construction, that is actually mass handling coming from when you are drilling or if you are deconstructing something. So if you can crush concrete on site and have a plan for how to actually reuse it again, then yet again, you will reduce the need for materials, but you also will reduce a lot of the logistics and a lot of the trucks transport. So that's a lot of diesel, but also mindful, a lot of traffic. So having that kind of thinking, understanding where can you make the most impact? Where in the process should we make sure that we are being in part of the dialogue? And so to state that, and that's also when you can scale those solutions. And so one of the things that we are doing is actually we have our own podcast calling Shaping a Sustainable Places. And there we are having dialogues with different kinds of partners, suppliers, and customers to talk about what are the different solutions out there, because there's a need to spread that knowledge.
I see the bridge, and this sort of bridging in between continents or countries and so on. We have a geopolitical bridge, I think. You mentioned that you are very active in the US. Maybe you can tell us about other parts of the world, Asia and so on. And as a European company, I know some of the laws and some of the policy is very strict here for circularity, for reuse of materials and so on. How does that help in the current environment to kind of bring this to the world? Is there an advantage? Is there something that you can bring, let's say, as an international leader with the European roots? Or is it something where you say maybe it's harmful at one place in the current state of the mind?
So we are present in the US and then also in Europe. And I would say that to understand the markets where we are at, you have to see what are the needs in different markets. So, for example, in Central Europe, there is quite a focus when it comes to water and water efficiency and water protection. And that means that in that market, our customers and also we and the people of Skanska, they are quite skilled in understanding those kind of circumstances. And I have to admit, in the Nordics, we have not been that skilled in water efficiency because we have felt that we have plenty of it. So that's quite a learning point just within Europe. Yeah. Yet again, in the Nordics, we have for several decades been very focused on energy efficiency and energy efficient building and how to optimize and also how to use different kinds of prop tech and for smart building solutions, how you steer and optimize the buildings as well as insulations and glass, etc. And of course, that knowledge today is really needed in many other markets, not just in Europe, but also an increasing interest in the US. So if you walk the streets in New York, you know how you are used to see those labels when it comes to your refrigerator. You have those little labels of if it's A, B, C, D, etc. Energy efficiency of a refrigerator. Now you got that in buildings in New York. And that's also due to regulations pushing in New York for an increase in energy efficiency in buildings. So of course, for us to transfer knowledge back and forth like this, that's a strength of being a company present in different markets. But it also means that we need to understand what are the customer needs in one market and how can we actually apply those solutions, but also explain the opportunities in another market.
This is a journey for the company and also a journey for you to be in this position. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. So when did you start at Skanska, but what was your journey before and maybe your journey within sustainability?
Well, I started in the 90s working as a consultant for environmental resources management. So that's an international consultancy firm doing a lot of implementing a lot of sustainability management system, doing a lot of research, etc. But I was so lucky because I started in the office that actually had a team that was working on this great transition journey for the largest hotel chain in the Nordics, Scandic Hotels. And what they did was actually how to build up a management system on environment, health and safety, but very much focusing on the environmental aspect. So how actually to reduce the impact from a hotel. And you know, there's a lot of water, a lot of heating, a lot of detergents and cleaning stuff that is needed to be used. And how to do that more efficiently. So they actually engaged their whole workforce, more than 20,000 employees. And I was lucky enough to be part of that team, being a newcomer, seeing how they did this amazing change management. And one of the outcomes that actually was from that whole process within Scandic Hotels was the idea coming from one of the employees that what if we asked the customers to hang up the towel, not needed to have a new towel the next day. Then they could save a lot of water and chemicals, etc. And at that time, it was groundbreaking. And some thought that they kind of missed out on the service that you're supposed to give to a customer. But today we know that was a groundbreaking idea. That was really good. And it also tells you about when you're working with sustainability, you need to focus on the core business. You need to think of what's relevant in this setting. And that's something that I have with me. So I worked as a consultant for 9 years in lots of different industries, energy, retail, automotives, a lot of different, and all from change management to crisis management and reporting and stuff like that. And then I actually shifted and I went into finance and insurance company that was doing long-term investments. And there, understanding the asset management, venture capital, but also the long-term investment in real estate and how that is impacting society. And yet again, learning how important it is to have quite a big respect for the business model. Because if you want to scale something, you need to understand how it fits, how your solutions or how the management system is working, so you can integrate sustainability. And then after that, coming to Skanska, and of course, as you can see, it's quite an intriguing industry because it has such an impact, both when it comes to environmental aspects as well as when it comes to social aspects. So sustainability and also the need for a shift driving the innovations, it's quite a hot topic and important to not put on the snooze button when you are waking up, but actually getting out of bed and getting the work done.
And you say there's a social aspect. I read that you also were engaged in for a time where Skanska works together with IKEA, I think on housing. Maybe you can talk about that. And also, I think you were part of International Chamber of Commerce in Sweden. So there's, let's say, social, meaning also let's say, how do you say, stakeholder management, working together with other partners or other stakeholders. Can you tell us a little bit about these projects and your role?
Yes, so we have been doing a lot of different partnerships and for a long time partnering up when it comes to with IKEA, foremost in the Nordic market, when it comes to actually how to be able to construct buildings and develop when it comes to residentials. Also a bit more of a leaner concept, so to speak. So trying to have less of the costs is quite an important aspect. When it comes to ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, I'm really honored to be heading up and being chair of the committee here in Sweden for sustainability. And actually, a lot of the suggestions and stuff we have developed in that committee has actually also been put on the table internationally and been also launched internationally. And maybe that coming back to also at times sustainability, of course, there's a lot of cool stuff we are doing. But if you're doing something that is brand new and you can't standardize it, it's really hard to scale. So when you talk about innovations, it's not just about coming up with the technical solutions. In order to have an innovation being able to scale, you also need to make sure that you take care of what are the potential liabilities. Is it of good quality, the solution? What is also the standard and how does it fit to other standards? Because once you crack those stuff, then you can also scale it much more large scale.
So you have a well-rounded career, multiple steps, and looking from different perspectives on change, I would say, and sustainability. What would you think are maybe some of the important characteristics for leadership qualities in the role of the CSO that help you or that you recognize in your peers?
I think, of course, a lot of people would say persistence and grit, and I do agree on that one. But I would say it's extremely important that you do understand the business and the business model, because you need to be intrigued about what works and what does not work and why not. Because that's how you can drive large shift and also scale stuff. And doing that, I think it's important to understand where is the market going? What is the technology advancements taking place? What is the regulatory development? And what does that actually impact on the customer needs? And what can we do to solve their needs and come up with solutions or using our expertise in a way that would make it better for them? Because that's when you know that you can do something terrific.
How do you, this is fascinating, obviously, because this is the role. Some people say a CSO is a chief sustainability orchestrator. So you have so many different people playing their violin and their piano and their, in their specialty, and you got to all bring them together and learn from each other and instill the mission of being more sustainable. What is the part of, let's say, communication and other skills that help in bringing a cohesive message, so to say? How do you work across, continents like America and US, America and Europe? How do you, let's say, engage with, let's say, the other team members or across your staff?
So we had different kind of networks, and actually one of the things that we did learn throughout COVID was actually how we can have digital meetings, and that opened up a whole box of opportunities. So what we have actually launched is a different kinds of knowledge hubs, we call them, and that's through the Sustainability and Innovation Network. But it also attracts people in line management, project leaders, all through Skanska. And what we did was actually stating that there are different kinds of topic, electrification of sites. How do you set up a work site with heavy machinery going electrified? You need to plan and operate them a bit differently than you do with diesel machinery. So that's one knowledge hub. Another is on ready-mix concrete. Yet another is on drones. How do you use drones? How do you do them? How do you have your drones officers getting the right certifications? But also, how do you integrate that imagery that you get from the drones, also being part of your planning and design and stuff like that. So we have a lot of different, those kinds of networks where you're actually really easily, you can invite people and you can just have a Teams meeting, you have some presentators, and then you have some Q&As. And as you can hear, it's pretty easily done. It reaches out to all of our projects. It's just a click away, so to speak. And I myself, I just listened in to one on circularity and how to do circulations on mass and crushing concrete, and another one just on drones. So that was the past 2 weeks, the ones that I choose to just listen into when I was actually sitting and waiting on the bus.
Yeah.
So how to make that fun, how to make it interesting. And also people love to connect all across Skanska and the world. And we just need to help out how to connect the dots.
So how do you see the role of the CSO evolve in the next 5 years?
These days, I think for us to understand how to navigate the complexity is really important. And that also tends to not just understanding the involvement, the geopolitical, but also what it means for our strategies and our business development. So helping out to navigate those complexities and adding on to the strategy business development within a company is important. I also think that there is a twin transition going on. It's a green transition. It's also a digital transition. And those ones are quite coupled. So we need to be much more savvy on the emerging tech solutions, because that's really helping the green transition and vice versa. Because we're also starting to ask of a lot of data when it comes to materials, carbon, energy, logistics, etc. And that can be used to drive efficiency, but you can't get all that data if you don't use those kinds of digital tools or kind of digitalize your whole sustainability management system, for example.
And some people say the role of the CSO might be, every team has a CSO basically in the future, or has somebody responsible for sustainability, and the role will fade. And others say, no, it's actually even more strategic because there's also value created. If you're sustainable, you're also more future fit as your organization or as a leadership team. And so maybe I think at H&M, the former CSO is now a CEO. So there are some examples where at least you move up in the executive board. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I can definitely see that shift. I myself is reporting to the CEO and be part of the executive board. Equally, I can also see that how important it is that you are. You need to have the expertise and you need to have a function that making sure that you are up to date or hopefully a bit ahead of the curve, making sure to push for those continuous improvements and being quite strategic. But just like when it comes to finance or HR, leadership is not just an HR question. Equally, sustainability is not just a sustainable for the sustainability function. So whatever you do, you need to make sure that it is an integrated part of the rest of the company and the operations, even though, of course, you need to have some core function, making sure that you are keeping track on governance, the management systems, but it's also kind of spurring the organization to setting the right direction.
So you mentioned earlier that you also have a net zero target. What year is your ambition?
Yes, so our ambition is 2045. We have an interim target by 2030 for us to reduce our own emissions with 70%. And so far, the past 10 years, then we have reduced with more than 60% our own emissions. And then it's also our scope 3 in our own project development. And there, I have to admit, it fluctuates quite a lot because it depends on when we are divesting buildings. Right now, we have 37% reduction in scope 3. And yet again, so we talked about how to engage everyone and what's an important part of the CSO role. The way I'm speaking now, it sounds really odd and complex for a lot of people. So instead for me stating scope 3, target, I may as well, and this is what we do internally towards customers, state, well, it's, for example, about energy needed per square meters in the buildings that we are developing. And for us, we have implanted energy reduction curves. First, we call them carbon reduction curves, but then we realized if we call it energy reduction curves, it's much more easier for people, project leaders, line managers, and our customers to understand the value and the focus in what we are doing. So now we're talking about energy reduction curves. We're talking about energy per square meters, and you can see it in our annual and sustainability report. Last year, we were 25% better when it comes to energy efficiency than market standards. So that's also how to follow up and make sure that you are driving that shift you want to see.
The closing question for me would be, what is really for your, let's say, what are you looking forward to in the next 5 years with all the shifts? But what is basically, if you get out of bed and what are you eager to work on, or what is, let's say, something that really drives you as a mission forward that you're looking forward to?
I think there is tremendous opportunities when it comes to making sure that we are having more innovation also connected to the sustainability arena. So how to really be responsible about driving the shift when it comes to climate and social sustainability, as well as that tech solutions that can help us to such a high degree. We haven't talked so much about safety, but there are tremendous opportunities if we automate much more, as well as making sure that we can separate people from risky situation. And I look forward for our industry also to advance much more when it comes to that.
Thank you so much, Lena. This is so inspiring to see how you, let's say, built your career, but have this built environment where there's so much to do and so much ambition to drive forward, and that you drive this with your innovation and sustainability hat. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck on your further career.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I have to say, it's not me, it's a team. And it takes, just like it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a whole corporation and all its employees to get a sustainable impact. So I'm really thankful for the support and the high engagement I get from Skanska, as well as for our partners and owners and customers.
Fantastic. And it shows with your awards and your recognition. So kudos to you and the team for the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.